I don't see this as the end of the world. I see it as the end of a currency and financial system structure. And it's the end of that world that is upon us. And, we have the outbreak of violence because of that. It's the end of the current financial system and the end of the current fiat currency system. There's about $0.8 trillion of physical gold and silver supply to the market annually. At current prices. So in actuality, a 10 or 20 or 30 time move in the price is entirely possible.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. That was my good friend, David Jensen. You know his work over at Substack. He's one of the best analysts in the silver and gold space. And I'm thrilled to have him back as our insane government wades into yet another war nobody voted for. What does it mean for gold and silver? Well, on Sunday night, we saw another gold and silver slam, only to be corrected on Monday. And as I'm recording this, on Monday afternoon, silver is already back to 88 and change. Where does it go next? Well, potentially many multiples higher. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Before we start, just a quick word about a very valued sponsor. War with Iran and the closure of the Straits of Hormuz isn't going to help. New numbers out of Washington show inflation is on the rise again. Another threat to you, your savings account, and your retirement. Ask yourself an honest question. Does your dollar go as far as it did 10 years ago? How about 5 years ago? How about yesterday? So what does the next decade look like for you and your savings? If your portfolio lacks exposure to gold, one of history's most reliable economic hedges, it's time to rethink your strategy. Gold has kept up with inflation and in many periods outpaced it. Our friends at Noble Gold Investments specialize in helping people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. Whether you're rolling over an IRA or making a direct purchase, their team walks you through the entire process and they'll make it simple. No pressure, just education and experience. Right now, all new qualified accounts will receive a free 1/10 ounce American Gold Eagle as a thank you. There are no guarantees in any investment decision, so work with a trusted financial advisor. And then visit noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com and discover how easy it is to protect your financial future. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sean from SGT Report with this Monday, March 9th broadcast. Guys, today was supposed to be Black Monday, and while things started shaky out of the gate, markets stabilized by midday. One wonders, are these the bots? Who's buying all these stocks, guys, as the world melts down? Now, last night before I went to bed, gold and silver were selling off hard, down some 3+%. And I shared this from Trading Places. Sell, Mortimer, sell. Who wants gold and silver when the world melts down? They're just worthless relics. We have the one, the only, David Jensen back on the line. David, how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm well. Yes, I can hear you. How are you, Sean?
I'm well as well. Thank you so much for being here. Where would you like to begin today? Would you like to talk about impending World War III? Let me play this in the background because the last time we spoke, David, our country had not struck a sovereign nation. Well, I guess Venezuela, but who's counting Venezuela? I mean, we're talking a country more than twice as big as Iraq. Iran has been struck. And guess what? The 82nd Airborne Division of the U.S. military has been put on high alert for a possible ground invasion in Iran. Now, I don't know about you, David, but I can't think of anything more stupid than that. Meanwhile, there's worries that a nuke could be on the table. Listen to this.
I have absolutely no doubt that the United States and or Israel or in a joint operation are going to utilize a tactical nuke.
All right, that's retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar. I'm coming back to my guest. Well, anyway, let's come back to my guest's Substack, the cause of the coming silver price explosion. David Jensen, the last time we spoke, World War III was not on the table, but it appears to be so now.
Yeah, it's there's been some steps taken that are very, very difficult to turn around, and we seem to be getting drawn. The U.S. seems to be getting drawn deeper and deeper into this morass in the Middle East. I don't see any incentive for Iran to stop the conflict now that it's been engaged in. I think they see it as an existential battle. And there's a lot of happy talk out there that this is going to be a quick turnaround. But, we've seen here in the last week, it appears that 16 different U.S. bases have had their surveillance radars taken out, including some very important over-the-horizon radars that are used to spot missiles. And they've basically had their eyes taken out. And along with the inability of Israel to intercept these tens of thousands of missiles that Iran has, they're very much pinned down right now, is what I can see. And when you look at the size of Iran, 2.5 times the size of Texas, with 90 million people, and decades to prepare for this, because I think they saw it was inevitable. I don't see a quick resolution.
I don't see a quick resolution either. And here's the thing. Most human beings on the planet don't want war. We want to be left in peace to raise our families. But it just seems under this construct, this Rothschild, Rockefeller, death machine construct, there's no escaping it. I mean, the point I would like to make, and I made it time and time again, is nobody that I know who voted for Donald J. Trump voted for this. So what we need to do is extricate ourselves from this Federal Reserve central banking death machine, David, but that seems impossible to do no matter who we vote for.
I don't remember war with Iran being a platform of the Trump administration in the last election. And it's certainly a lot of what he has said has been turned on its ear. And it is concerning. But I guess it shouldn't be surprising in terms of my sense is that he's been compromised and that he does not have the ability to choose a path which differs from what is being dictated to him.
Right. What do you think would happen if, God forbid, either Israel or the United States used any sort of nuke, a tactical nuke or otherwise? Number one, what do you think would happen in this conflict, and what would happen to the world economy? How close to World War III do you think we are? Because we know China and Russia are monitoring this situation closely and giving intel. We're hearing that they're giving intel to Iran. Russia has openly stated that they're not staying neutral. They're standing with Iran. So for folks listening, we truly are on potentially the cusp of World War III. And then what makes it really scary is you've got commanders in the U.S. military telling the troops that Trump is ordained by God for just this, to bring about Armageddon and usher in the second coming of Jesus Christ. Okay, these are words actually being uttered within our military, David. So this stuff is serious as a heart attack. What do you think happens if we put troops on the ground, A, or B, use a nuke?
Well, good luck with troops on the ground when you have a country of 90 million people. I think it's 92 or 94 million people, but it's roughly 4 times the number of people in Iraq. And when you look at the terrain, it's not flat desert. Let me put it that way, and it would be an absolute quagmire for anybody that tried to insert troops in there. So I don't see that as being something that is even remotely possible. I think any state that would use tactical nukes in this position would become an international pariah state, and I just don't see that as being a viable option either, except through an act of desperation. So, but it certainly does. The situation is going in a very negative direction right now. Let me just leave it at that. And there needs to be a climb down, I think, by the U.S. and Israel, and I don't think that they're going to be able to do that, or that they have the will to do that. So it's going to have to continue until there's so much pain from this direction that the conflict stops. And I'm waiting to see exactly what causes that. So indeterminate from my point of view right now.
The other concern for any thinking American, especially those of us with young people in our lives, sons, daughters, sons specifically, the White House spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt did not take the possibility of a draft off the table. She said Trump is leaving all of his options open. And I would just say that I think that would be a absolute wake-up call if they re-implemented the draft. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're not there yet. But drafting our young people for yet another meat grinder war, Rothschild-Israel war, is on the table, folks. So let's turn our attention to silver. Last week, I was amused, David, when silver was slammed. Zero Hedge took yet another opportunity to put out a members-only article, the likes of which the title was something like, Silver and Gold Blow Off Top. Is this the silver and gold blow off top? And I thought, isn't it interesting? They never, ever want to talk about all the mountains of paper silver and paper gold. Zero Hedge will never talk about the derivative paper, silver, and gold, but they love to talk about the tops being near in silver and gold. Where are we in the silver and gold story?
Well, the global inventories backing the three major exchanges in London and New York, pardon me, and Shanghai are all constricting quite rapidly. I put out an article there last week identifying the total amount of inventory. I put it on March 4th, looking at the inventories. There's been an update since that article, but basically, the silver that's not claimed by exchange-traded funds and appears to be available to market globally was 199 million ounces, but that's now dropped down. The London market has updated it with monthly data. It gives very, very sparse data once a month in terms of total holdings. But when we deduct out the exchange-traded fund holdings in London, and then identify the fact that the market seized up in October when there were still 140 million ounces in the vaults. That appears to be the basement for the London vault. So London now appears to have 57 million ounces available to market outside of the exchange traded funds, and deducting out 140 million ounces, which was the point at which the market failed on October 10th. The Shanghai Futures Exchange and Shanghai Gold Exchange have about 24 million ounces, and the New York COMEX has about 82 million ounces. So altogether, there's about 163 million ounces left versus the 199, which was visible a week ago. So we're seeing rapid declines. On Thursday, the COMEX reported a 6.5% drawdown, and Shanghai on Friday reported a 6.2% drawdown overnight. So, these types of moves, you can see that there's almost nothing left in these vaults, and total global claims between these three markets is north of 3 billion ounces. So there's so little left, Sean, and gold and silver, and I went through this in the beginning of the article, but containing gold and silver prices has been essential for falsifying very, very low interest rates for decades. That is how they ran it from 19% in 1980 down to 0% for more than a decade. And Alan Greenspan said that gold was his primary indicator of excessively loose monetary policy. And until very recently, gold and silver did nothing while interest rates were run down to 0%, giving negative yields to those who wanted to venture into this field. So when you take into account true inflation. So, exploding gold and silver prices basically are the signal that this false era of debased currency, of essentially free money to the markets is over, and that goes directly against the theme of eternally higher stock prices and everything's going to be fine. And it kind of fits in with the sophistry of this is going to be a short conflict, and we're going to look back at these as heroic times, which solved a lot of the world's problems.
The LBMA indicates that the London silver market sees over 780 million ounces per day of trading in its cash spot silver market on an active day, guys. That's about the equivalent of all of the silver mined in 1 year on planet Earth. But I want to go back to this point that David made in his article. You guys remember that cooling issue on November 28th when they shut down the CME, shut down the COMEX for a period of time? Well, they did it again on February 25th. Silver trading was halted for 1.5 hours. After trading was reopened, it was quietly announced that 31,828 contracts worth 5,000 ounces of silver each were quietly cleared while the market was suspended. What? What do you think happened there? Cash settlement, huh?
Tough to say. It's just, it beggars belief. And there's very little explanation coming out as to how you could have contracts trading while the exchange is shut down, while trading is suspended. So I think what we're seeing too, Sean, is a rapid decrease in the open interest, which reflects the number of claims in the market. And I think that the decrease in the open interest is reflecting the fact that people are leaving the market, because you can't have these arbitrary steps by the air quotes regulators of these markets. It makes a farce out of them, and I think all it does is accelerate the movement into physical assets, which are nobody else's liability. You don't even have an exchange involved in it when you have the asset, direct ownership of the asset. And I think, given what we're seeing in the world today, along with the behavior of the exchanges, is rapidly moving people to, giving them the wake-up call on this, and they're starting to vote with their feet and withdraw from the system. So,
by the way, isn't it obvious that a world war, the potential for a world war, would cause people around the world to rush to physical silver and physical gold? I was amused last night to watch them tank. Of course, I knew they would in that thinly traded time, right as the markets began to waken up around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Central Time in the United States, 7 p.m., 7:30. They just whacked silver and gold. And I thought, well, of course. There's only a world war happening here. Who wants silver and gold? They're barbarous relics. Who's behind that? How does that happen?
Well, it's the drilling of the prices of these assets. The incentive there to do that would come from the current financial system and the current currency system. And what we've seen here, basically since the beginning of 2025, when gold in London started to not be delivered on time, it was a 6 to 8 week wait to get delivery of the bars, which were supposed to be delivered overnight. The signal was that this paper pricing system or digital pricing system, which only works while people are naive to what it is and are willing to hold these claims instead of the actual metal, that price setting system was failing. And the entirety of the control grid of the financial system that we have is based upon the use of the creation of unlimited currency and ultimately unlimited assets in these markets, and that system was starting to fail. And so you can see this drumbeat towards war has accelerated over the last 14, 15 months as we've headed into this. And the bankers don't want this system to fail, and the governments, which can print currency, infinite amounts of currency, doesn't want it to end either, because of the tremendous power that you get out of the ability to create currency. If you think about currency as what you get for work, what you're paid with, right? The ability to create currency is the ability to create the outcome of work. And what a gift that is. You can inflate financial systems, and you can, gift currency to the various financial market players, as the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England do with their quantitative easing. They buy their assets at 100% of the book value or the purchase value, and they give the currency to these bankers to keep the system liquid. And that when this system fails, you basically lose complete control of your citizens, because they will turn to other media of exchange, as they always have. And the dominant media of exchange throughout history for day-to-day transactions was silver. And the silver market is basically shaking its head and starting to march to its own drummer, away from these digital price centers in the major centers. And that is certainly, in my view, an incentive to change the story and to create the necessary conditions to bail out the system, and also to distract people from the actual signal which is being sent here, of the failure of these markets.
As we look at these silver leverage numbers that you have in this article, 2 billion ounces of open claims in London, and the available vault holdings are 86 million, although you just told us the available vault holdings are really only 57 million ounces in London.
Yeah.
Do I have that right? Which is right,
Yeah.
86 or 57?
Well, 86 was the data that I had last week, and now there's been new data issued, and it's dropped to 57 from 86. So
that's crazy. So it's dropped.
It's about 30% plus or minus, yeah, in a month.
29 million ounces? It's dropped in a month. 2 billion ounces of open claims in London. We're still literally talking about a Ponzi scheme here, are we not?
Well, it is an increasingly levered Ponzi scheme, right? You can see that the underpinnings of it, which is, what I look at as window dressing, is the metal that's available there for delivery. But when we peel back the layers, we take out the exchange traded fund holdings, and then we deduct the 140 million ounces, which were still in the system on October 10th, when that market in London failed, because there was no offers to the market. They said they've never seen it before. There was literally zero liquidity in a market that trades up to 800 million ounces a day of claims in the cash market, which is the immediate ownership and the right to take immediate delivery of metal. It tells you that this market has already failed, that it's basically all over except for the crying. And that's the point we are at now, Sean, is this entire price fixing system is failing before our eyes. And in the midst of that, a war starts in the Middle East, because I mentioned this in the article, that you can only fight these wars as long as you can create infinite currency, or you're going to have to punitively tax your entire population. They won't accept that. So, yeah, here we are, failure of the price fixing system, failure of the ability to set interest rates ultimately. And it happens at the same time that we have the start of a global war, which I think is going to be calamitous. We've got 50% of the seaborne or shipborne fertilizers are shipped out of the Persian Gulf. And the ability to move fertilizers, as of now, has been terminated. And, what it speaks of, if it continues for any length of time, is disruption in food supply and famine in some centers.
Yeah, we're not done talking about silver, folks, but what you're looking at on my screen is the fact that the U.S. has started bombing and attacking Iranian oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. Meanwhile, our allies in the Persian Gulf, not happy at all, the ones that were given billion-dollar planes and making trillions in investments in the United States, they got their Patriot missile systems removed and sent over to Israel, and they're none too happy about it. So how does this, in your mind, we'll get back to silver in a second, how in your mind do you think this plays out in any beneficial way for the United States? Are you seeing our cup is half full in any way, shape, or form? Because I'm still seeing a lot of people cheerlead Trump and basically say, trust the plan. And I'm sitting here going, well, wait a minute. We're pissing off our allies in the region, the remaining allies we have existing to prop up our debt. 39 trillion in debt, and we're told to trust the plan. I don't know. What am I missing here, David?
I don't see anything other than the fact that the fiat currency system is in a failure mode right now, and with the failure of the containment of gold and silver and the ultimate failure of the fiat currency system comes a failure of the ability to project power. And if the First World War, it was said, would have had to have been stopped in the first year with a punitive 40% income tax if it hadn't been stopped, if we were under a gold money system. And so before World War I was started, the fiat currency system, through the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, was created. And so it's really a time-limited ability, given the situation that we're in right now, to project power and to engage in these. We're seeing, in terms of economic disruption and loss of assets, we're seeing trillions of dollars going up in smoke right now. And it's really a desperate play, but it leads ultimately to the same place. And the root cause of the problem right now is a failure of leveraged debt system. And unless that is dealt with, there is no permanent solution in store for Western society and for the Western economy.
Let me play this clip for you, David, and then I want to talk about the price of silver and the price of gold today. $85 for silver. I assume gold's around $52.50. I haven't checked. I wanted to play this, though, regarding all of this talk about options traders taking a huge gamble on the near-term price of gold going to as high as $15,000 to $20,000. Listen to this.
Right now, somebody with incredibly deep pockets is buying December calls on gold on such a scale that the volume is an absolute outlier. December, that's the end of this year, basically, call strikes at 15,000 and 20,000. That means they only start to make money above those numbers. And those would be considered probably relatively cheap, but they're being bought on such an industrious scale that it smells like somebody knows something and is prepared to take quite a wild card bet. Now that sounds like a 4x from 5,000 plus in a single year. We could be talking about a year of crisis, and it's coming. Where did that happen before that makes us even noteworthy? Maybe it's a clown with a lot of money who likes gambling, okay? Well, the same thing happened in the silver markets when we were in the late 30s, early 40s, and then dribbling into the early 50s. There was, I think it was February or March, incredible call buying at the $80 and $85 mark, liar volume. All of those ended up deep in the money on the spike.
That was Francis Hunt. What do you make of it, David?
Well, I think it's entirely possible that by the end of the year you could see gold prices like that. Really, the big issue I see in making those bets is what can you buy with that currency, because it speaks of basically currency disruption, number one, and number two is it's unlikely that you'll be able to take delivery of that metal on the COMEX at that point in time if you do see the price move that high. So you'd be getting paid off in fiat currency credits, and really the question is, if it's been disrupted that much that you have those types of prices, like what could you actually buy with those credits? So it doesn't surprise me that people are placing bets like that. It's just the question is, like, how do you actually intend to execute, capitalizing on the gains that you get from that kind of a trade?
Sorry for a quick break, guys. We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop taking those injections, they regain an average of 60% of the weight within a year. Even worse, most of that gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they began. That's why I know you're going to be obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override your body's system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help your body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. You'll get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. GLP-1 Elevate supports your goals while protecting your muscle, so you can actually keep the results for good. Get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithsgt.com. every order includes a complete support bundle with free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head to trimwithsgt.com right now to claim your 50% discount before it expires. The link is below.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that people are placing bets like that. It's just the question is like, how do you actually intend to execute, capitalizing on the gains that you get from that kind of a trade?
But wouldn't that be true for all of us? Because I own some gold. So what am I to do with my $20,000 gold when the time comes? Are you saying that you'd hold that gold? Because if we see $20,000 gold, well, then maybe we're talking about hyperinflation, so we're sure to see $40,000 gold?
Yeah, he's talking about COMEX, the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange's COMEX market, and that they're placing bets in the futures market or in the options market on the price of gold in the future. So what they have is digital claims in a digital market, and my view is that the metal is going to be swept away in that kind of a scenario. There's already constricting supply of the metals. We're seeing it with silver first. But all of these markets are seeing a decline in their inventory, and they're all so highly leveraged, as we've just discussed at the beginning, that if you hold digital claims in the futures market, in the futures gold market, like how do you intend to capitalize on that gain if it's accompanied with a failure of that market?
Got you. All right.
The ultimate point, if we want to distill it down, Sean, is, the holding and the ownership of the metal is the secure path, and not holding digital claims in a disrupted market.
Copy that. Okay. And where do we sit today in your eyes with $85 silver? We've got William Middlecoop and other really knowledgeable forecasters saying $300 to $500 is absolutely in the cards for the year 2026. But, before I hit record, I wish I'd hit record earlier. You said, hey, it's in China's vested interest to, not see silver go to the moon as well. So none of these
Right.
nation states want silver at $500 an ounce. How do we get there? Do we get there? Is it possible to get there? Or will the paper games continue until morale improves, meaning we'll never get there?
Yeah, no controlled economy wants to see citizens with private money where they're able to take the assets that they directly hold and transact with them, right? They want us to be contained within this fiat currency system where they can create and credit infinite amounts of currency to those whom they select, and they can disrupt and hold it back from those that they disagree with. So yeah, China doesn't want to see a moonshot of silver, and neither do any of the Western countries in which the big exchanges are located. But I think what we have here, Sean, is a market force which is moving. We've had price fixing for decades. We have very, very severe undersupply of metal to the market, and the silver markets are working to reprice the silver to where it needs to be in order to have an adequate supply of metal to the market. So I think what comes out of this ultimately is that these exchanges, these leveraged digital claim exchanges, are going to fail. And I think what we're going to see then is basically what I would call a starburst of the global market into dozens of trading centers, and a movement away from this leveraged claim system, which can effectively create infinite claims on a fixed amount of metal that they have in the markets, and give a false price indicator to the market.
That's interesting. So you're predicting a future when there will be real physical silver exchanges, gold exchanges around the world, and people only deal in the physical. That's in the
Directly.
cards for the future. It has to be, right? It has
Yeah.
to be. Because you said there's only 24 million ounces of silver left in Shanghai. See, that might be the most surprising statistic. But guess what? Even in China, the citizens of China, the people that make the stuff, the solar panels, they want the physical. So there's a raid going on in Shanghai, which is very real. It's as real as the raid going on in the COMEX and the LBMA, correct?
Yeah, the metal has been flowing from west to east, right? From our vaults to Eastern vaults. I mean, right now, there's about a $12 premium on the price of silver in China versus the pricing in the New York and London exchanges. And it only costs $2 to insure and ship these 1,000-ounce or kilo ounces of silver from the West to the Eastern exchanges. And so this metal is going to move. Basically the metal is going to move. It's going to flow. And until there is a rebalancing of the price between Shanghai and the Western economies, the metal will be continuously drained from our vaults. And as we've discussed, there's very, very little left in our vaults to provide the window dressing for the enormous amounts of digital claims that have been issued in these markets. What I ultimately see is a series of trading centers where there is exchange of physical metal, where every claim is backed by an ounce, and there's a return to true price discovery. And I think that is what has to happen. We've gone through 40 years now, or 39 years of this London system, which has given a false price. And we're now seeing the price really take off in the face of the enormous shortage that this price fixing system has created.
We'll play this soundbite from our buddy Bix Weir, then we'll ask David to make a prediction for silver prices in the future.
Gold and silver don't act any which way that the powers that be, the people who control the derivatives and the computer programs, want it to act. There is nothing, and I'll say it one more time, nothing that influences the price other than those who control the computer programs. That's it. Doesn't matter supply, it doesn't matter demand, it doesn't matter if there's a bomb that goes off, it doesn't matter if there's a nuclear bomb set off in Washington, D.C.
You know, I'll pause it there. Look, Bix has been a guest many times over the years. He's a good guy. The reason that I think he says that is because of what they did to oil. Remember when they took oil negative for a period of time, David? He's talking about the price riggers on Wall Street. They do seem to act with impunity regarding the price of silver. But where I disagree with him is that they have to play the paper games to manipulate the price. And that's where they've been caught with their pants down. What do you make of that? What do you make of what Bix just said versus what I just said in their paper games?
Well, the pattern I've seen over a prolonged period of time is these sudden sell-offs. So there is an exchange that goes on in the market, while the market is naive to the fact of the true level of shortage, that you can apparently get all the silver and gold that you need, and that because they can create infinite claims for this stuff, they have these shock entrances into the markets where they rapidly sell it off and hit the trading, the stop losses or the stops, and cause a cascading down of the price. But that only works as long as you can get metal in the market. And what you're going to get to is a point where a large enough percentage of the market says, just give us the metal, that this system fails. And we're within weeks or months of that happening now, is that there's so little metal left, and that the shortage level is so extreme in the markets that the demands are accelerating for physical delivery, and the whole scheme of providing digital metal fails. The digital metal fails when people demand physical metal, and that's where we're at now, Sean. So yeah, they have been, and you can set the price wherever you want with a digital market, but that market is right now having a coronary.
Would you even dare to make a price prediction for silver? We don't even have to put a timeline on it. I mean, between now and 2030, as this system does finally reset, just looking at the open claims, again, in London, 2 billion ounces plus open claims against 86 million. Nope, not right. Against 57 million ounces of physical silver available. How does this play out for those of us who hold the physical precious metal? We've been rewarded, certainly, over the past year. But how about over the next few years as equilibrium returns to this rigged market?
Yeah, choose a number. I don't know the number. Let's say higher. Yeah. But this can get completely crazy. And because the price fixing has gone on for so very long, and the entire supply chain of silver and gold, for that matter, is completely inadequate for what we have now. So choose a number. It's really a mug's game in trying to select a number, I believe. But I would say it's much higher. The thing that I am concerned about is that we're going to see much higher interest rates, and that spells a not very attractive scenario for anybody that holds bonds and for anybody that holds equities in the stock market. So there's $270 trillion of assets in the global bond and stock market. And as I mentioned in that article that you're looking at there, is that there's about $0.8 trillion of physical gold and silver supply to the market annually at current prices. So if you have $1 trillion trying to enter a $0.8 trillion, you can easily send the price up by 5 times or more. It's not a linear relationship in terms of price versus the amount of the amount of capital that's seeking to secure the assets.
It's actually shocking statistically. I mean, have you ever seen a more lopsided bet in your life? Like, to me, silver is a sure bet. It's a sure bet because, sure, we've got these cataclysmic price moves every single day because of the bankster paper, because of the manipulation, because banks are still short. We should talk about that too. Which banks are still short? How short are they? And can they escape? Have some of these banks escaped when they do these price cataclysmic moves from 120 down to $70 in a matter of like 2 days? It seems to me the most asymmetrical bet in the world isn't Bitcoin, it's silver. And over time, you will be rewarded one way or the other, because if for no other reason, David, these governments can't stop printing fiat. There's no end in sight to the printing of fiat. So that alone ensures a higher silver price in the future, in addition to all the other things we've talked about. Is silver the most asymmetrical bet that you know of?
Yeah, I really haven't laid it all out in terms of which ones I think are more. I think it is the world's premier monetary metal throughout history. It's been forgotten about, over the decades. It's been sidelined and forgotten about. It's been disparaged. If you look at, just type in the devil's metal, you can look at all the articles from Wall Street Journal and Financial Times, etc., talking about silver. And so, it's been seen as a very, very highly risky asset. It's been portrayed as that by the financial press because it directly competes with the digital assets that they're marketing in the financial system. And there's no VIG for these banking system operators and financial market operators in people holding their own secure assets. So in actuality, a 10 or 20 or 30 time move in the price is entirely possible. There's a tremendous potential here, but there's going to be a tremendous battle to suppress the awareness of the metal itself, because it is really the escape hatch for people not to be trapped in the coming digital central bank digital currency system that is going to be paired with a digital ID and a social credit scoring system as they have in China.
Huh. And we both heard that the U.S. government has talked about putting a floor price under silver. Do you have any more information on that? I think that came from the Trump administration specifically. It's a strategic metal and they want to put a floor price under it, which by virtue of just saying that means they got to end the manipulation. Can't bring silver back down to $30, right? Those days are over. What do you think the floor price is for silver? Do you know anything more about that?
No, I think what we're facing here is a runaway price, and the floor is kind of irrelevant in that situation, right? You're not worried about it going below a certain level, because that it would only drop below their given level if you had a strong currency, and that's the last thing that we have right now in all of the West and China's currencies as well. So currency as well. So Yeah, we've got a price escalation problem, and putting a floor in place is it's not really relevant right now.
Okay. All righty. Is there anything else we're missing? Any low-hanging fruit that you wanted to discuss? Because I think this is still one of the biggest stories in the world. Of course, who actually assassinated Charlie Kirk? That's of some concern to me. And what the heck we're doing in Iran? That's obviously the biggest story in the world. Is now they're talking about troops on the ground. I cannot think of anything more insane than American troops on the ground in another meat grinder war, this time in a nation surrounded by mountains, as though God himself is protecting Iran from marauding invaders. Final word. Anything I missed today with you, David?
No, I just look at the situation in the gold and silver market, and then I look at the ignition of a war, and I think, well, is that all you've got? And I think the answer is yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. What you working on this week? I know that you're a mining CEO too. Tell people about that.
Well, I run a couple of gold and silver development companies, so we're acquiring assets and preparing them for production, and that is my primary focus. And what I'm following in the markets right now is, of course, the oil markets, and ultimately, coupled closely with oil, gold, and silver, is interest rates. And it's been interesting to me that until now, since the beginning of the war, what was it now, 10 days ago, that interest rates have marched higher until now. So they're down a little bit today on the day. But overall, since the initiation of this war, interest rates have gone higher, which means people are selling fiat-denominated bonds, and it's of concern because of the level of indebtedness out there. So keep an eye on interest rates. Keep your eye on the yields. The 10 and 30-year Treasury. Keep your eye on the gold and silver prices, and I'm going to follow the availability of metal in the markets, because I think that is the key issue that we're dealing with right now. And then, of course, the oil price as well is very, very concerning to see the disruption of flows of this. 20% of the world's hydrocarbon energy that comes out of the Gulf, and it can't go on for very long without extreme disruption to the global economy and to the food supply chain as well.
Can I just read this last article for you and get your thoughts on it? You're a measured guy, you're a thoughtful guy, and you care about international law, you care about justice. We don't get much justice in this nation, and you're in Canada, maybe you even get less up there. But the Kremlin says, it seems the end of the world is upon us because we've never lived through something worse. Putin's spokesperson has addressed the growing fear that the end of the world is upon us. Dmitry Peskov has also hit on a breakdown in international law as a massive U.S. and Israel strikes on Iran continued in an onslaught the Kremlin labeled as a perfect storm. I guess my caution to listeners who continue to support all this, Trump trusts the plan no matter what he does, is that that's not the way other nation states look at it, and that's not the way international law works. You can't just strike a sovereign nation. I guess here's the thing that really bothers me. And Dr. Lee Vliet is still very much in the Trump camp, so that'll give us an interesting conversation this Friday with Todd Callender and Lee Vliet. I can't get there anymore, David. I can't get there when we strike a sovereign nation that didn't attack us first, and then we strike two girls' schools and take out a bunch of schoolgirls. I just can't get there. And I certainly can't get on board with sending our men and women, our men there, for a ground battle in an impossible situation. Meanwhile, Russia and China they must wonder, has Trump lost his mind? The final word on this, for those that trust the plan, international law has been violated by the United States, not by Iran.
Well, yeah, I don't see this as the end of the world. I see it as the end of a currency and financial system structure. And it's the end of that world that is upon us. And, we have the outbreak of violence because of that. It's a last attempt to get some business done while you can, to be a little bit insensitive about it. But that's basically what I see is happening right now. and also that as the currency system is disrupted, you can bet that Iran would have moved towards gold settlement and for oil, and that that they are also a member of the BRICS nations, which are creating an alternate currency to parallel the West's financial system. So, yeah, it's the end of the current financial system and the end of the current fiat currency system. It's a process. It's not a day, a 1 day event. But it doesn't look well. The old man is very ill, and deathbed even, and we're seeing these really brutal kinetic events coming about because of the illness of the system, and there'll be an attempt to put in the new digital control system in its wake. But first, there's some business in the Middle East that they're trying to take care of, and I don't see any of it being successful in the end.
It's frightening. It's frightening. I think this is, to a large degree, it feels like end of empire behavior to me. Our guest has been the one, the only David Jensen, and the Substack. This is where you do your most important work. Your most public-facing work is right here on Substack. Is that right? jensendavid.substack.com?
Yeah, that's right. I post there a few times a week with the information that I can find, I think is the most salient. But right now I'm focusing on the physical supplies of gold and silver because they're going to become increasingly rare. And they've been telling us now for more than a year that there's a very, very serious problem at the major exchanges. And when you start seeing 6% drawdowns, as we did last week overnight in both Shanghai on the futures exchange and in New York on the commodities exchange, the COMEX, it tells us something is it's not going to be long with us, and you don't need to draw it down to zero to have a reset of the pricing order right now. So yeah, definitely focusing on that.
Okay. We appreciate you very much. We didn't even talk about silver stocks today. Are there any ETFs that you like to play for a levered play on the silver story by playing the junior miners or the majors at all? Any ETFs you might recommend for folks to take a look at?
Yeah, I don't have a very positive feeling about the exchanges because you're buying through brokerages and they are all intimately tied in with the banking system, and we're going to have a banking system disruption at some point. So I don't see assets, gold and silver miners held through exchanges as being really a viable option right now. I think if people want to own miners, they should ask for delivery of the share certificate. David Rogers Webb, with his great taking work, and Patrick Byrne, who was the former CEO of Overstock.com, he was warning us back in 2006, 2007 about this, that where the share certificates are supposed to be held for the brokerages, that the banks have stepped in front of citizens in terms of their claims on the assets. So I just don't see Sean owning shares, equities in gold and silver miners as being really a viable, if you want to call it a lifeboat, or a viable protection in the current environment where we have banking system destabilization.
That's interesting too. So the same would be true. Your thoughts would the same thoughts would carry through with tech stocks or any other stocks. You've got risk because you don't own the shares. The shares are in your broker's name, even though they're in your account, right? So if the entire system comes down, that's basically what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, even bank accounts, my view of bank accounts is that they offer return-free risk right now. And why would I want to hold currency in a bank account? It's and that goes for the shares and the equities held through brokerages as well. If you hold a share certificate with a claim on a company that has some value, but the future is uncertain in terms of these assets as well being nationalized by governments. I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Central bank monetary policy leads to certain collapse. It's just the policy, folks. They're going to keep on printing, so you know what to do. David, thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate you very much.
My pleasure, Sean. Always good to talk.
All right. There he goes, guys. Jensen, David.substack. The link is below. David Jensen has been our guest. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you're still with us, thank you, guys. Appreciate you very much. And I'll remind you every single day for free, check us out at sgtreport.com. That's the real news 24/7. And until next time, God bless you and yours, friends. Bye-bye.
And when you own the newspaper, you own the radio, you own the television, you own all the media, you can play anything that you want onto the people. And you can imagine what that does to the psyche of people. And then you can eliminate anything that's positive or, going in the correct fashion. And that's what it's all about. Like you said, it's really just this mind stuff, these mind games. And, people send their kids off to this, like you just said, then they're also, consenting to all of this, because they're defending that, which is completely crazy. And that's why I started to realize, like, all these wars tie back to the Rothschilds, and the Rothschilds funding these wars so that they can destroy the ones who would fight for the country, because that's what I've started to think about, those who would fight for the country, and then keeping everybody else who would say, well, I'll just kind of go with it because they're protecting us for our safety. But we all know that that's a crock of lies.